very important evening when the Yankees clinched the second spot in the American League East for the playoffs. I want to teach an important lesson on the theme, actually, of the high holy days, no kidding around, which is nevertheless learned from baseball. We've been serious enough lately, the sermons on Rosh Hashanah, and I'll be serious again tomorrow, of course. So for tonight, let's say that it's time to take me out to the metaphorical, socially distanced ball game to learn a lesson about perfection. Over the 150 years of Major League Baseball history, that's over 218,400 games played, there have been 23 official perfect games by the current definition. That's when nobody gets on base, the pitcher faces 27 batters, and he gets 27 people out. There's no walks, no hits batsmen, no errors, nothing. He gets every single person out. And no pitcher has ever thrown more than one, even in the history of the great pitchers we've had. So this summer, actually, we passed the 10th anniversary of my favorite not perfect game, one of the greatest games ever pitched in the history of baseball. It was June 2nd, 2010, an ordinary game between the Cleveland Indians and the Detroit Tigers in Detroit. Pitching for Detroit was Armando Galarraga, a good but not a spectacular pitcher. But this night, he was spectacular. And he got the first 26 Cleveland batters out. One more out, and he would pitch that perfect game, a game in which no opposing batter reaches base in any way whatsoever. It's a big deal. The batter hit a little ground ball over on the first base side. The fielder fielded it, tossed the ball to the pitcher Galarraga, who was adeptly covering first base, got there in front of the runner by a hair. Bang, bang, he's out. Every video shows that his foot hit the bag before that of the batter and that he had the ball in his glove. It wasn't even that close, as such calls go. The problem is the umpire, Jim Joyce, standing with an excellent view and in position, physically flinched his hand towards the out position, but inexplicably changed the direction of his hands, flinging them apart and emphatically signaling safe. The umpire called the batter safe, and Galarraga's amazing performance, his near-perfect game, immediately became just an ordinary, well-pitched game in the record books. At that time, instant replay was new. It was only used for home runs and foul balls and the like. It was deemed that an umpire's judgment call was the call. There's a joke my dad told me when I was a kid about three umpires. The rookie umpire says, I call them the best I can. The middle-aged umpire says, I call them the way I see them. And of course, the experienced umpire says, they are whatever I call them. The truth is, I'm not going to talk about the pitcher. And I know a lot of people probably thought that this lesson this evening was about a pitcher. And you could go down the road. It was a highlight of his career through no fault of his own. He had it taken away from him, but he was able to, that's not where I'm going. Talk about the umpire, Jim Joyce. He's a good man. He was a great umpire. He was in a lot of postseason games. He was a very important umpire in the history of Major League Baseball. And umpires have careers too. And they have pride and they have expertise. And umpires take their job seriously. And the fact of the matter is, for an umpire to be able to stand there in that moment for the final call of a perfect game is the umpire's dream. It's his life's ambition. One day, maybe I'll be part of something that makes history like that. And he flinched and he blew the call. The greatest moment his career had been building up to, he blew the call. He got it horribly wrong. Not only was it a blown call, it was a blown call that changed history, that stole a perfect game out of the hands of a pitcher who has no way he's ever going to go to the Hall of Fame. He wouldn't have been remembered in the annals of baseball history. He took that man's greatest moment away from him. And even though there was no Instant replay that night on the ABC World News. There it was, the blown call. That night on ESPN, hour after hour after hour, the blown call. On the radio, the blown call. When he called his wife, the blown call. It was horrible. What do you do? The commissioner of baseball called him and he said, you know what? Tomorrow, if you want, maybe you should take the day off. You know, you don't have to go and face it. You don't have to stand in front of that crowd. People in Detroit were livid. They were coming ready for blood. They were going to boo and scream and hiss. And the man was shamed nationally in the sports world. And this is why I think this man is amazing. He said, no way. I'm going to the ballpark and I'm going to do my job. Can't imagine how hard that must have been for him. And this summer, there was a 10th year anniversary of that game special shown on ESPN since there wasn't sports to watch. And they interviewed him and they interviewed Galarraga, the pitcher, and everyone else around them. And they showed video of this umpire walking down the hallway out onto the field, red in the face, tears on his face, walking out to the boos of the crowd. Now, there's another little picture in here. Jim Leyland, who was a great character in baseball, was the manager of the Detroit Tigers at the time. Jim called up Galarraga. You know, a pitcher normally doesn't wear his uniform the day after he pitches. And he said, wear your full uniform and come to the park. Sit in the dugout. And he had something planned because the umpire, who had been at first base the night before, his rotation was he was calling balls and strikes behind the plate the next day. Jim Leyland said, wear your uniform, take the lineup card, and you walk out to home plate instead of me, and you hand that umpire today's lineup card. And so the man sees Galarraga walking towards him, and the crowd going crazy with anger. And he just stood there professionally with the tears pouring down his face. And Galarraga reached out, put a hand on his back. And from that moment on, the script flipped and it changed. And it became a story of forgiveness. It became a story of bravery and courage to own our mistakes, to stand in public and say, yeah, I did that. That's the worst thing I ever did. This is the worst moment in my life. And I'm going to make that next step forward and I'm going to do the next right thing. And for the pitcher, Galarraga, to have the bigness in his heart, to see it and recognize it and say, the man has been punished enough. I have in my heart forgiveness. He didn't do it to me. He just did it. And he was wrong. And the part that I loved the best about this documentary this summer, 10 years later, was the interviewer asked each of them, would you like to have that night back? And would you like the call to be changed? And they both said no. Because of the truth of the matter is, it would have been the 24th perfect game, and that would have been in the history books. But it became something else. It became something more famous, more special, more unique, more important. It's not a sports story. It's a human story about failure and forgiveness and kindness and moving on. Those are the themes this evening. Rather than jumping around, being hysterical, or holding grudges, the flaws of your own life are here tonight. Not in denial, not in grudges. You own them. You know what they are. You know who you have to talk to. And so in the spirit of that most perfect game, why we play games, and the lessons we learn from the games we play, I pray that your flaws haunt you and bless you. May they be publicly known and personally owned. May you forgive those who harmed you and learn to put your hand on their shoulder. May you have the bravery to stand up and step forward even in your worst moment. May you be blessed with the strength, courage, and lessons learned that come from imperfection. May you be human. May you be a mensch. L'Shana Tova, Gemara Timata, Tzom Kal. May you be finally inscribed for good. Have an easy and a meaningful fast. We'll continue now with Ya'aleh. Back in our Machzorim on page 223. 223, the cantor will lead us in Ya'aleh.